who is not open to the usage of technology is creating problem for everybody. I am not the only party in litigation. Please understand that. There are clients who may be sitting in any part of the world or the country. There may be the opposite party which may have to mark their presence. There may be their staff who have to come. So we have to really educate people on the benefits and the way technology has to function. Every time there is a change, there is a resistance. But is this resistance reasonable?
Hello everyone, welcome to the Digital Lawyer Podcast. Today we have a very wonderful guest, Mr. Advocate Jayant Bhatt, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us. So before we go further into our discussion, I would like to know your backstory. So could you please highlight your background, sir?
Right. First of all, thank you so much, Nishanji and the Digital Lawyer Podcast for having me on your wonderful platform. I think you're all doing a wonderful job by creating a lot of legal awareness, especially on the digital front, which I think the country and the nation needs at the moment. So nothing fancy about the background story, just like a regular Indian person belonging to a middle class family who was, not very good in science, decided to do law and take up law as a career. And while I was doing it, to my mind, it was a comforting option. One, because a person can contribute to the society in lot many ways by being a lawyer, and second, it was a language game as opposed to doing trigonometry or rocket science. Law seemed still a lot simpler an option back in the school days when I had to sit for my entrances. But little do you know that the moment you start practicing law or start doing the study of law, things only start to get more complex because the law is nothing but the representation of society. So I would say it's no less complicated than rocket science in its own way. And how long I was when I was a student, but as they say, you only learn, on the job. And today my job as a lawyer, I would say, is extremely satisfactory. It's very satisfying because I think as a court-going lawyer, as a litigating lawyer, one gets to interact with so many people. Today being a second Saturday when we are recording this episode, I had the privilege to appear before the Supreme Court, who was also sitting on a second Saturday. And then right before I think this webinar, I was judging a new format of a constitutional assembly debate, and here I am with you on the podcast, juggling my life. So that's the long and short of a background version of a story of as I said, a regular lawyer and a regular citizen before you.
Great. So did you always wanted to be a lawyer, and how this journey took place, where you have studied law and later on you have also done LLM actually? So could you please highlight your main focus area while you were doing the LLM?
Yes. So as I said, it was in class 11th, where just like a lot of Indian families and misguided Indian students, you get good marks in class 10th, and a false sense of confidence is instilled in you, saying कि अच्छे बच्चे तो science लेते हैं. That's the regular कहावत.
Right.
And with that misnomer, I jumped into the tricky and turbulent weather of being a science student. I very quickly realized that it was not my cup of tea, and the subjects did not fascinate me. Language, I think English, and not even C++ or the coding language interested me so much. That's how I took on to pursuing law as a career. My family guided me and navigated me to few law schools prospectus back then, because this I'm telling you of the early 2000s, when the whole concept of 5-year legal education in India was very, very new. Now, obviously, it has taken wings and people are choosing law a little more, vigorously, so as to say. And right after my 5 years of law school education, which I pursued from Amity Law School, which was then affiliated to Indraprasth University in New Delhi, I had the good fortune of applying for my master's, and I went abroad to Singapore, where I did a dual degree, popularly called as NYU at NUS, which is the collaboration of two leading universities in the world. The first is New York University, which is situated out of New York in US. The second is National University of Singapore, both leading universities in the world. And they were coming together to offer this joint master's program, 2 degrees in 1 year, of which I was fortunate enough, again, to be the first batch of this program. And that's how my education has been. I decided against pursuing a PhD. I think 2 masters ho gaye bahut hai. So you also have to practice once you decided to also practice and enter the profession.
Great.
So that has been the journey of being a LLB student and then pursuing a master's.
Okay, great. So you were always sure of going into litigation, and how do you see that doing LLM give you advantage of being a litigation lawyer actually?
Right. So, two very different questions. Yes, I always wanted to pursue litigation as a career. Most of my internships ended up being on the litigation side, but I also did intern with law firms, with UN organizations. With one was with a Supreme Court judge back in those days. So that gave me different and a very broad perspective of how litigation should be done and what it entails in the broader periphery of things. And how does your master help? Actually, I always tell this to people that no knowledge goes for a waste, and your master's degree is just an add-on to the knowledge you have already gained over the years by being LLB student. So that only adds exponential value, one, to your knowledge base, and the second is you get a worldview of things, especially if you're going abroad for your masters. You are sitting with the best students, best minds from across the world. You are being taught by the leading legal brains of the best universities which are out there. So that has its own impact. How that helps in litigation, perhaps, is it gives you a worldview and a bent of mind on thinking things differently. I think that is it's very important. Being in a different country, being in a different place, appreciating different laws, how they're interpreted, looking at the jurisprudence from various countries definitely helps you hone your skill as a lawyer. So it doesn't matter whether you pursue litigation as a career later, or you want to be a corporate lawyer, or you want to be a policy lawyer, or you want to be an in-house counsel. I think a good education is always a great value addition to one's personality.
Okay. And so being a first generation lawyer, so how your journey has been being a litigation lawyer, and what kind of challenges that you see and you overcome, and when you look back at the things, so whether it was organically and you strategically kind of chosen path and the steps that you have taken so far to be where you are
Right.
right now.
Right, very, very interesting question. Look, being a first generation lawyer, the whole title in itself is, a challenge in itself. The profession obviously has its own challenges to throw, both in terms of finances and in terms of practice that you have to build, especially if you want to pursue litigation as a career. Challenges are still there. I'm not saying they have ended. I think till the time you're practicing, and be it any lawyer, be it a first generation or a 10th generation, there are always challenges to not only just build your clientele, but also build your repute and your goodwill in the profession as you keep growing, in the industry. People tend to repose a lot of faith as you are growing in age, and that those numbers in your age keep increasing. The first teething challenges for any first generation lawyer are to find a good chamber, to find good law offices who will train you under whose tutelage, your senior's tutelage, you can gain valuable perspective of learning different nuances in the profession. I have been fortunate enough to have worked in different offices before I ventured on my own, but nothing was by design. It was more by default, because as a first generation, there is only so many things that you can design. You can try to pursue masters. Yes, always wanted to do two masters, which happened incidentally in 1 year for me. I had an education loan to repay, because of which I had an option to go and join a law firm at the start of my career. That enabled me to quickly repay my education loan, and then my journey back to India. The option always was to work under different lawyers and to gain different insights of how different court practices happen in the country, be it trial court, be it Supreme Court, be it High Court. Because as you rightly pointed out, being a first generation lawyer leaves very, very few margin of error when you want to practice, and you have to know as many things as possible in a very limited period of time.
That's
Because
true.
not only are you competing with other first generation lawyers, you're competing with the best of the best in the market. So
True.
you really need to know the ropes of the profession, and I think that holds true for any lawyer who is out there.
That's true. Great. And like, so could you please highlight some of the interesting cases that you have taken up, and what is the thing that you look into before you take up any matter, you know?
So I've never been choosy. Whatever clients or
Okay.
matters have come,
Hmm.
with utmost humility, I have
Hmm.
taken them, unless the case is morally so perverse that my team would say, please return the brief. But that
Okay.
has only, I think only happened once or twice in my career so far, when people who are near and dear to me, were cases of, minor children, a minor child was involved with sodomy and rape. when they read the brief, they said, please do not take this brief. But otherwise, as a practicing lawyer, I do not have too many reservations in taking up a client's matter, because at the end of the day, not only is it a mandate, it's also a duty as lawyers to represent a client without fear or favor. I think that is the underlining ethos for any practicing lawyer, which goes into making of any decent lawyer, I would say. There have been not many interesting cases. I can't be pointing any one particular case, because your practice, as they say, is built on a variety of challenges which come to you in a matter of briefs from different clients at different juncture. So let's say, this week, to give you a basic illustration, I've had the benefit of appearing before High Court, Supreme Court, and trial courts, because these are regular fora. Being in Delhi, it helps you to, juggle in multiple forums. And I have been appearing regularly before all these forums in the week that the courts have started to resume normalcy, and physical courts, at least the district courts, have started to go physical. High Court, Delhi High Court has adopted a hybrid model. As I said, second Saturday the Supreme Court was sitting, so I had the benefit of appearing there virtually. So every case is different, every client is different, their requirements are varying from the type of problem that they see themselves in. It can be a commercial matter, it can be a service-related matter, it can be a termination matter, it can be a white collar or a hardcore crime, it can be an intellectual property matter. So my office is dealing in a variety of matters, and as I said, every matter with it brings in itself its own charm and challenges, which I think can't be equated. So I'll be filling in my duty if I say that one matter is more dearer to me than the other. I think all my clients, because I have to serve them equally, come with some hope and with some aspiration to the chamber. And I think my team and me myself together try to give everybody an equal footing when dealing with the cases.
Great. So what are the kind of interesting lessons, or that you have kind of because as we are into profession, we also grow as a person and professional as well. Okay. So what are the kind of learning through this path so far, in a sense, when dealing with clients or people, when we are kind of planning to take up their matters in a way. So what is the biggest lesson career wise for you as of now?
I think it's a very important question for anybody who is either in practice or wants to practice later in their life. I think my takeaway has been never to have a lackadaisical approach, not to have a moment where you lay back and tend to relax. One, because then not only are you doing a disservice to yourself, you are doing a great disservice to your client, and that should never be a case. The first hurdle for any lawyer, irrespective of whatever pedigree or generation they are from, is one, to develop a clientele. When you've started developing a clientele, I think it's equally important to deliver to that client the relief that they are seeking. And to deliver that relief, you cannot just sit back and start relaxing, maybe because you have received your fees or you think that there is a adjournment in the matter. You have to keep honing your skills. You have to keep developing your arguments and your strategies in a matter going forward. So I think those things have to be in a continuum. You cannot have a rest day, especially as an independent litigator. Yes, I'm not saying work 7 days a week. We take our holidays very seriously as we take our work.
Yeah.
But having said that, we try to enjoy the work which comes through the door, and we try to delegate evenly amongst my colleagues and my team members in the office, so that nobody is unevenly burdened. So I think the greatest takeaway has been, do not be lackadaisical in your approach. Have a management and a team skill in terms of developing leadership skill with everybody, because I think that is very important.
Yes.
Tomorrow, if any lawyer who is associated with me either wants to change their chamber or wants to go independent, I am the first one to congratulate them or to refer them to a new chamber if I can, because I want everybody to progress and prosper in life. When you are in practice, the idea is to take everybody together. Practice is not built of me as an individual or you as an individual. Practice is made up of people who are together pulling this cart of justice. And I think that is very important. Be it the judges, be it the staff, be it my lawyer colleagues, in the chamber. Doesn't matter. We have to take this, wagon together. So I think that has been my greatest takeaway in the profession so far.
Wonderful, wonderful insight. And one thing I have observed, like you're very active on LinkedIn actually, right? And you mentor a lot of students, and in conversation style you have kind of updates, and it's a very insightful, whether they are entrepreneur, law students, lawyers, or interns for that matter. So when you are mentoring people with all these messages and updates, so who is your professional mentor?
I think I tend to learn from everybody around me, be it my interns, be it my associates, be it my seniors at the bar, be it my colleagues, because in law you cannot avoid conversation with people. You have to, either by design or by default. Clients will come, they will converse with you. You go to court, you have to sit for chai samosa, you end up talking to people. When you are in your chamber, you are interacting with your interns, with your associates, you have to have a dialogue with them. So all those conversations, dialogues, the chit chats, they always lay a foundation of these posts in one way or the other. And sometimes, let's say, that intern may be me 10 years or 20 years, when I was a student. Perhaps a question may occur to him today, because as a lawyer, you are perpetually student of law, right? So sometimes in a conversation style, I may put a question to myself and try to answer it. You know,
Yeah.
but just being a practicing advocate does not mean I'm not a learner. Intern is a learner. Come to think of that. So
Yes.
the term intern, people think that it's always a student, but you as a student of law always
Yeah.
have those questions before. So it's a very,
Yeah.
it's if you tend to understand the conversation style of an intern and a lawyer, the term lawyer is deliberately used in those conversations because a lawyer can be in-house, a lawyer
Yeah.
can be a judge who
Yeah.
was, a lawyer is anybody who's studying law. An
True.
intern can be anybody who is seeking to learn.
Uh,
So it's more a discourse between a person who is seeking the truth and a person who can guide and navigate a
yeah.
person to seek the truth.
Yeah.
So that's how the conversation style develops, and I don't think it's a very tough conversation style. I try to make it engaging so that people who are not even lawyers
Yes.
can try to have a thing a thought perhaps may occur to them while reading this conversation. If you're a lawyer, you may find it in a form of a joke or a meme. Sometimes it can be in a form of a legal challenge or a hurdle that we are all facing as a society.
Right.
So as I said, we are the most intrinsic building block of the society, and being the last the cornerstone. When we say justice is the last cornerstone, people turn to courts when there is no resort left. So I think, be it a HR lawyer dialogue, be it an intern a lawyer
Yeah.
dialogue, be it regular post that I write, my endeavor is to write at least one post daily
Yeah.
of the experiences I've had either in a day or in a week. I jot them down when a thought comes on my
Okay.
phone, so that I can formulate them later. There are
Yeah.
days when I do not have a thought early in the morning, but when I calm my mind down early in the morning or just before sleeping in the night, and I ask myself this question: can I make world a better place tomorrow than it was today, either in terms of my thought or methodology,
Yes.
or in terms of just as a normal human being? I find myself duty bound to write these posts, not because I'm looking for any viral post or any sort of attention, but because I think a good writing always contributes to the well-being and to the mentorship of society at large. I think that's the moral behind it.
Yes. And generally, what I have observed, your posts are usually very engaging. And I have seen many people kind of update on a regular basis. But the interesting thing about like your post for me is basically we could look back to ourselves like a few years back, like and like could relate to those things. So that is very
Ji,
interesting. So whenever I go through I find it very interesting. In fact, in the earlier call we had also discussed about it. All right.
ji.
So moving forward from here, so in your opinion, what do you think? What kind of personality or strength that one need to possess to be very successful in this industry, or whether these things can be kind of developed going forward, in and around.
Right. Look, there are two very different traits. When we speak of personality and strength, in a way, your personality is developed by the strength that you have to incur to endure the profession.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is something that we need to realize. And the inner strength comes from your inner voice, your learnings, your teachings by your family, which is the first school for any child across the world. And that strength then takes the form of a personality later as you keep growing. We go through
Right.
different phases of our life, be it our elementary education, be it our higher education, be it a legal education, which is always continuing in our line of
Right.
practice.
Right.
So I think that is a continuing phenomenon, and so is a change of personality. So though it's also believed that a person is born with a certain traits or a persona, but I think you can always develop or build on your personality or your personal traits, or even if you have shortcomings, try to try
Right.
to uh, you know try to overcome those shortcomings by way of, again, positive personality building. And for that, you have to keep drawing strength from different walks of life, from different people around you, from different inspiration sources around you. It can come from reading books, it can come from watching TV, it can come from spending time with friends and families, and it can simply come from observing the world around you. So I think one has to be observant, and you don't have to burden yourself by saying, I am going to have the most dashing personality in the world, because that is something that cannot happen. Human beings and nature and everybody around us, be it trees,
Right.
plants, animals, have a very symbiotic relationship with one another. And I think that is, an important thought to carry with you. That even when you, as a lawyer, are arguing before the court, you are assisted by your office people. You have to assist the court. The court is assisted by you and their staff. So again, the symbiosis is there.
Right.
So I think that is very important, because the interdependency of one personality onto the other personality, so as to say, is the basic mandate of nature. And with by being assisting one another, be it in court or be it in life, I think we gain strength as a society and as a civilization.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I have seen that, you mentor lot many students, and through your post, or even I have seen, generally, like when I was researching before interviewing you, so most of on those pieces I have kind of could see that there is kind of you usually actively provide mentorship and guidance to law students. So
Ji.
and most of the discussion that we have been having so far is something related, and many of students will find it very insightful and helpful in that regard. So what is the one piece of advice that you would like to give to the students who are just starting off with their kind of career, actually, law students?
Right. I would say, please do not be in a rush. It's a very long profession. It takes time. The best example are wise judges who are presiding in different courts across the country. If you go to trial court, if you go to high court, if you go to Supreme Court, people only become judges with at least 20-25 years of practice under their belt. So you can imagine, if you want to, and in lower courts, it's a little early. You can give an exam, you can become, a magistrate or a civil judge. But even to become a district or a session judge, you have to have good 10-15 years of practice under your belt, some understanding of how the system works. So please do not be in a rush. It takes time. It's a great dish which takes years in preparation and making, but the end result is always exemplary. What I see with young people is a lot of impatience. I had that in me when I was starting out. I'm no different than people who are starting their career out today. But if I have to give advice to my younger self, who is, let's say, in their early 20s and just starting out of college, I would say just take it easy. Enjoy the time that you have with you right now, because when you are young, you will be forgiven for your mistakes. The older you get in the profession, people will take your word a little more seriously and will
Right.
come down heavily on you for every mistake that you commit. You will be under probing eyes, both by the profession and by the public.
Right.
So that would make your life a little more difficult than it is today. So today you have all the time and lesser stress and expectations of people, except your own, because your own expectation tends to sometimes drown yourself in terms of stress and anxiety. So don't have that. Have a great work-life balance. That is something nobody tells you. Uh, Read books which may inspire you in your leisure time. uh, Interact with people, especially who are not lawyers, because they will give you a different overview and outlook from their walk of life, and they can be your prospective clients. Yes, lawyers are your clients, but when every lawyer is busy building their practice, ask yourself this: why would they give you a client or a matter when they are
Right.
trying themselves to make ends meet? So these are very logical and commonsensical things which I always wish to convey, to the younger audience for their own benefit and going forward. Please do not leave the profession midway. Even if you
Okay.
think that things are tough, there is always light at the end of the tunnel.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for this insightful advice. I'm sure that our audience, and particularly law students, will find it helpful. And as we see that, technology has kind of integrated in our life, and every one of us, whether they are in profession or not, we cannot imagine a single day without technology. And
Ji.
even it has kind of, came into the legal profession, legal industry in a way
Ji.
that as a kind of industry, we are considered that we are very kind of laggard and adopting technology. But
Ji.
gradually new and emerging roles are coming up, right? So what do you suggest to the students, like people who are planning to do law, or law students doing law, apart from the court and litigation, or even working as a corporate lawyer, what other opportunities that you see, and how they can actually leverage these emerging kind of changes that are taking place, and whether they should prepare beforehand, or what should be the kind of steps that they could kind of observe and take.
Right. Look, let me answer it in two phases. The first phase is we have already embraced the technology which is already there,
Right.
especially in metros in bigger cities, because we are using smartphones, laptops, tabs, etc. To attune ourselves and align
Right.
ourselves with the technology which is there, whether it be for virtual conference or doing a TikTok or a reel, or putting something on social media,
Right.
doing webinars, etc. By and large, in these 2 years at least, I would say we have aligned, how to use technology. But I think the second biggest challenge that we face, especially the legal industry, is how to enable our courts across the country to use and utilize this technology. And I think this is the first challenge which every lawyer, every court administration, and every law student faces. When I speak, or when I used to speak to my virtual interns at least, and ask them how the things are in their respective district court areas, the stories that I heard were very dismal, to be very honest.
Mhm.
Courts were hardly working. And I think this is the first step which needs to take our attention as a society. Because rather than developing new technologies, let's first try to ensure that the current or the prevalent technologies can at least be utilized by the
Right.
system.
So,
So I always tell people, how do you ensure the last mile availability of justice in the country? We already have Cisco WebEx or Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. We're all using it in the metros. People are working from home. My friends, my family members, during the pandemic have adopted to great work from home environment. People have left metros, gone to their hometown, still effectively working from home or working from anywhere,
right.
as it's popularly called. So what is stopping us to bring this whole scenario to the court system? So I think
Right.
for all the young lawyers, young listeners, young viewers, my appeal is please find a solution on how to take this technology to all the courtrooms in the country. you know Make sure there's people are trained properly, young lawyers, old lawyers, court staff. And when everybody is trained, to enable the use of this technology, I think there will be more transparency in the system. Litigants will not have to travel far and wide. A poor litigant will not have to waste their money. We are still a developing country, and these 2 years across the world has made financial life difficult for a lot many families. People have lost their near and dear ones. And the least I think the courts need to do is to ensure that they don't need to suffer at the hand of justice. So for example, if we speak of bigger states, any state in the country, I'm not talking of the metros here, where there is just one high court or a branch of a high court, and people have to travel far and wide from the remotest corner of that
Yes.
state, I think we are doing injustice to those litigants. So we need to devise a way, a mechanism by which every citizen of this country has an ease, of doing. And when I say ease, I mean the ease at the same level of doing shopping at Amazon or a Myntra or a Flipkart, and
Right.
the ease of ordering food like Zomato and Swiggy. If you, today, by the use of your fingertips, you can get all these, services sitting at the convenience of your home, why should the legal industry or the service of justice be any different?
Great. Great answer. And how do you think, like, as a law schools and law colleges should prepare themselves to kind of offer alternative career for lawyers? They don't necessarily need to practice in court, because since technology interventions are taking place to even enable the complete ecosystem to leverage those solutions, so definitely people we need people from the industry who understand the industry and also understand the technology to come up with the ideas and solution to enable the complete ecosystem to operate efficiently. As you have already answered one part of it, where you have suggested that we can adopt what is already there, and from there we can move forward. But do you think that our law colleges and law schools are ready to kind of provide alternative career options, in the legal field to the
I think
students? Yeah.
the first challenge before the law schools is whether they can provide employment for all. That's the biggest challenge. Once I think that challenge and that hurdle is overcome, then alternate career can be thought about, because even in the current scenario, there are multiple career options which young lawyers are already aware about. As I said, you can choose to be a litigating lawyer, you can choose to be a parliamentarian or a policy maker, you can choose to be an in-house
Yes.
person, you can choose to have your own company, your own
Mm-hmm.
enterprise. Choices are there. Choice is not a problem. Problem is, can the law schools enable and empower these young law students to find their true calling? I think that is very important.
Right.
That can only come by, I think, limiting the mushrooming of law schools in the country,
Yeah.
ensuring that a good breed of lawyer is honed and harbored in these law schools. These young, intelligent minds are protected from the fatalities of and the rigors of the real world scenario, and then given a platform where they can actually not only learn but also earn in the profession. I think those are the biggest challenges before the law schools today. The other challenge which everybody is facing in law schools are no different is to start the physical resumption of their campuses, because education, I have realized, it can be done remotely. There is no problem, but as lawyers, as people who are very social in our approach, especially the human beings, be it any student, not just law students, need to interact with one another, need to brainstorm, need to pick each other's brain when you're in a campus life. I think that is very important, and that is which COVID-19 unfortunately has taken away from most of us. That physicality of meeting and debating with your friends, deliberating with them. So I think that atmosphere, once things are getting back to normal, most of the webinars will again, I think, go back to seminars or symposiums or panel discussions, etc. And the new generation has all the benefit and advantage today of using the technology, either on their phones or on their laptops or other things. I don't think you and I need to tell them or guide them what they need to do.
Yeah.
I think they're already very smart, really ahead of their time. On the contrary, I think we need to learn from them how to adapt their aspirations to the inexperience that we face because of this non-existence of technological development, which was not there in our time and which is there in their time. So I think we need to act as a bridge. On the contrary, I think we need to take advice from the younger ones, rather than giving them the advice.
Yes, I would agree with that, because I have been also observing in and around, and that I could say for surety that what you're saying is 100% correct, actually. And we need to learn from each other, and whosoever can enable in us in these learning, irrespective of their age or experience, there's always something that we can learn from each other, right? And like and moving from here, and we would talk about our ecosystem, justice system, and if there is one thing that you would like to change about the current justice system, what would it be?
I think definitely the judge population ratio. We need more judges, we need more courtrooms, and we need, when I say courtrooms, I think we need less and less tribunals. I think there can be a single block with specialist courtrooms dealing in arbitration or commercial litigation or intellectual property or criminal law, so that the running around time of the lawyers, especially who are representing different clients, can be saved. Even a litigant can have a one-stop shop by coming, it's like going to a mall. When you go to a mall, you may sit in a cafeteria, have a sip of coffee, or you can go to your best shop that you may want to go shop for a shoe or a shirt or a jacket or a bed sheet or a linen, whatever. But it's a one-stop shop for so many people. Similarly, why should justice be any different? If you are doing a civil litigation or a commercial litigation or a corporate litigation, how does it matter if the campus is at one place? At least for lawyers, that would be so convenient. Today in Delhi, yes, there is positive space and other things, but creating so many tribunals, creating so many courts, it does not aid and assist. The alternate argument from the other side, or the wisdom of the other side, is it is beneficial for the litigant. Yes, it perhaps may be beneficial for the litigant, but a litigant has to be represented by the set of lawyers who cannot be inconvenienced, for the sake of convenience of the litigants, because eventually a lawyer has to come in the court and argue the case. So if today I have case in 4 different courts or 5 different courts, because of the physical travel or the commute that one has to undertake, it becomes practically difficult for a person to travel from point A to point B. That is one suggestion. The other is we need to really adopt the hybrid model, in letter and spirit. So, for example, today If a court actually feels a difficulty in conducting a case online which has to be heard physically, please have that matter on board, no problem. But miscellaneous matters, short arguments, miscellaneous applications when they have to be argued, can already be done on VC. I have personally realized the benefit of virtual courts during the pandemic, where my office has appeared in more than 4 to 5 or 6 cases on a daily basis, just with the click of a button. So not only are we saving on our fuel, we are not polluting the environment, we are saving valuable time in commute. Being in one office, my team can really strategize and quickly decide on matters. The time of judges is getting saved because we are not crowding a space, and crowding of space is not only necessary for fighting and tackling COVID, but also for other airborne diseases that the human beings carry with themselves on a given day and time.
Right.
COVID is just one of the many illnesses which are out there.
Mhm.
But why do we need to overcrowd our court premises? So I think with the use of some common sense, logic, and good management, these things can be really tackled. But for that, some sort of management and financing, budget allocation needs to be done by the government towards the judiciary. And as I said, the judge to the litigant ratio needs to improve so that all these things then automatically start streamlining themselves.
Okay, just an extending, one part of this question. So, as we see that the kind of number of pending cases that we have, from
Ji.
lower courts to high courts to even Supreme Court, actually. So, how do you see the role of technology in access to justice, right, and how it can be kind of proactively achieved by kind of implementing these solutions at different levels?
Right. Look, as I said, technology is already aiding and assisting people. It's the
Right.
people who are resisting the technology.
Right.
So I think we need to really change the mindset of the people. And I'll give you example from my own practice. I'm doing both litigation and arbitration and mediation. So far as the dispute resolution is concerned, my office is looking into all these spheres. I have had, as I said, the privilege and the benefit of appearing in VCs across multiple fora. I have also had the challenge of physically appearing where certain courts or certain arbitrators were not very open to using technology. And that becomes a problem because not only do you have to plan and you structure your day accordingly, the person who is not open to the usage of technology is creating problem for everybody. I'm not the only party in a litigation. Please understand that.
Yes,
There
yes,
are
yes.
clients who may be sitting in any part of the
Mm.
world or the country. There
Mm.
may be the opposite party which may have to mark their presence. There may be
Mm.
their staff who have to come.
Right.
So we have to really educate people on the benefits and the way technology has to function. You know, every time there is a change, there is a resistance. But is this resistance reasonable? That is the larger question we need to ask ourselves. If
Mm.
today, in these 2 years, law schools have seen graduates, law schools have seen fresh people coming, courts have seen justice being dispensed with virtually,
Right.
what is stopping us to embrace the technology wholeheartedly? This is the question I think that we all need to ask ourselves and ensure that even when the pandemic is behind us, we do not forget that we did use the technology for these 2 years and that too effectively. Perhaps not to the same ratio or to the same
Mm.
magnitude as we would have wanted, but definitely I think it's a great start and people have utilized the advantage of this. And imagine from the point of a litigant who is infirm. Imagine from a point of view of a litigant who is a child or who is an old aged person or who has met with an accident or who is on a wheelchair. For them, this technology is a boon. They don't have to again go to a court system where there are no wheelchair mechanisms to or a elevated wheelchair mechanism or there are no lifts. Imagine the justice that they can get sitting at the convenience of their home, looking the matter being argued, looking their lawyer representing them before a court, looking them at the judge deciding that matter you
Right.
know so the instant delivery of justice sitting at the convenience of your home, I don't think there can be anything more wonderful than that. That is something that we need to embrace.
Yes, I would definitely, and I think by adopting these solutions, and as you also mentioned about there is a resistance for the change. Even one side is actually agreeing to kind of move in the direction where which can enable us to in the right direction or in a direction which enable the access to justice or improve the overall ecosystem. But if there is a resistance from the other side, the reality is little bit far away to kind of happen. So, moving from this point, I would also like to know your opinion actually. So, we have actively, like even people who have never thought of using technology the way they have been using right now, we have been actively using all these social media platform and communicating with family, friends, clients. and whatnot. So how do you see the relevance of the prohibition on advertisement for the legal profession in the given context, actually, right? In other countries that we see, and they can freely kind of talk about their work and everything. So how do you see the relevance of prohibition on advertisement for legal professionals in India? And when there is already platform like LinkedIn, Facebook, and other online mediums, right, where they are already communicating these things. So there is a very difficult to kind of whether we are on the other side of a law or not, actually. So what do you think? And whether we should kind of foresee some sort of change, it should be the way it is, or there should be a kind of kind of pragmatic regulation in the place to basically assist the professional, particularly professionals who do not have any kind of godfather or somebody when they are new into the profession. So these mediums can kind of help them to kind of talk about their work professions using all these mediums. So what is your take on that?
See, I think it's a very interesting proposition. And to answer this simply, I would say when we envisaged the Advocates Act, we did not have social media, we did not have internet, we did not have too many things, in the society around us. The other thing which the law, encapsulates all the time is to be relevant with the changing times. And change is the only constant, as we all know.
Mhm.
So if we do not keep up with the times, we are going to get left behind. Let me take example of the United States of America, where people can freely advertise, especially the attorneys, the lawyers. They are free to advertise their work. They are free to have their own websites, etc. In India, people have bypassed this very cleverly. You cannot challenge the lawyer because lawyer obviously is a very brainy person, by assumption. So we have had biggest of the law firms now having running their own websites, writing regular articles about that, uh, which is not wrong to my mind. Today we have social media platform like LinkedIn where people also put up their cases in which they have appeared, argued, etc. It has to be looked, in a two-pronged format. The first one is, you can allow advertising of the lawyers and by the lawyers, but the second question then becomes, would it make any difference? For example, if the market is flooded with lawyers advertising their work, their offices, their photographs, it will only further confuse a client. As it is, the client is confused. So today, let's say if the hypothetically speaking, the advertising becomes real, there are lakhs and lakhs of lawyers in this country. Making a website in a country like India, which is the IT hub of the world, is not very difficult. You get people who can develop a website in a seconds of hours, if not minutes. Your website will be up and running, your photos will be there, you can put as much information as you want. But we are living in an age where, it's not just pandemic, it's also infodemic. So with all the lawyers advertising themselves in the nicest of suits and whatever cases they have dealt, would it actually help people? People are already writing articles, newspapers are already publishing them, magazines are publishing them. There are a lot of lawyer bodies, law organizations which are conducting online series. There are lawyer bodies which are already conducting blogs. So things are already there. I don't think advertising makes much of a difference in our profession because people come to you, one, for your personality trait, for your knowledge, and for the goodwill that you have in the market. This is something which is always very constant in our profession. Just like in medicine, you may have the biggest of the hospitals saying that we are the best hospital, five-star service, best cafeteria, best doctors. But you will always go to a doctor if you are in a stress, first asking within your family members if you know some doctor. And similarly, in the legal field, God forbid if a trouble comes knocking your door, you are first going to look within your circle who is the best lawyer available, whom somebody has already tried and tested. You know, so I think even these prohibitions, if they're lifted, and even if the lawyers and the law firms starts having their websites, I don't think it's going to have any marked difference. Uh, you know, uh, Advertising yourself is very different from soliciting yourself. You may put up a website, but I think you may still be barred to send random SMSs or WhatsApp messages to people, which I think should be avoided. As legal persons, we should not be unnecessarily soliciting ourselves. I think you advertise the work that you have done. You can advertise your intellect, your grit, on a social platform, etc. But as I said, there are regulations, there are bars which regulate us as of now, and that's why, as I said, LinkedIn. If you see my posts are never about me. They are about a thought. They are about how we can make the society a better place. If today I also start uploading all the orders that I'm arguing on a daily basis, what is the use? This is something every lawyer and every my lawyer's brother and sister are already doing on a daily basis. I'm doing nothing different, right? I'm also appearing in a court. I'm also arguing a matter. I'm also representing clients. So what is it that you're doing differently that counts? So every lawyer in every country who have a good name for themselves are doing things differently. They're not doing different things. And this is where the distinction lies. And that is what I think people need to understand. Advertising or no advertising I don't think it makes a marked difference to my mind. We are living in a world where technology is all pervasive, even if you don't advertise yourself. But if you go viral with your normal LinkedIn post or your picture or your memes, you can still be a lawyer with your creative skills on a different platform. So nothing is stopping us today to be famous than we were 100, 200 or 500 years ago.
All right. Okay. Great. Yeah, I liked your perspective on this because these has been always kind of a discussion point and always being talked about whenever there are certain platforms that are coming up, just not social media platform, but even kind of platforms where it's a legal service marketplace, or directly or indirectly these professionals cannot advertise through these platforms. But I always believe that having ample information about a professional, just not about their cases or matter, or even apart from these things, it actually helps people to take that right decision, in the sense, because all there are, like, we, even if we are from different places, we always move places. People who are working in Delhi, Bangalore, Kolkata, so they are not necessarily from those places. They are there for work, and in most of the cases these professionals and individuals, they do not know anybody, and there are certain situations where they need of the lawyers. So for their rescue, the one thing that comes, that is Google. They start searching and finding these things and trying to look into the different forums and how these professionals are answering certain queries which are relevant to them, right? So I believe that having those information about the practice area, about the professionals, it basically helps litigants or even individual seeking legal help to make that decision bit conveniently, actually. And when we talk about access to justice, so access of information should be the first thing that we should also kind of prioritize, and we should definitely look into this rather than kind of banning it completely. It should be properly regulated, and things should be kind of looked into the given current context with a fresh perspective around things, to basically enable everybody to kind of move in the direction where we are kind of informed, we understand our rights and obligations as a citizens, and also it basically directly indirectly helps them to find a problem, because law, or whenever we are in trouble, we try to seek finders. Why? Like, even there could be situation, if you are kind of leveraged with a correct sort of information, those situations can be avoided. So prevention is always better than cure. Like, in those situations, if people know about their rights and obligations, they understand, they can assess their scenarios, so many of these things can be avoided. So I believe that when there is access to information, and I think people will be more kind of informed, so the likelihood of kind of trouble later on finding these professionals, ultimately it will help us as a citizen, as a country, to look at things from a very fresh perspective, and as a law abiding citizen in a way, and they understand things from the broader perspective. So this is just my kind of understanding, and I think this should definitely kind of looked into, and with a fresh perspective around this, right? So moving from this point, I would also like to know, what is the one lesson that you have, learned. Certain things might sound a little repetitive, but this is how this questionnaire that I had kind of for you. But so I would like to know, that life lesson that you would like to share, that you have learned with professionals or even students, throughout your career.
Right. So let me quote a Urdu couplet here to bring the point home. It goes something like this. हाथों की लकीरों पे मत जा, हाथों की लकीरों पे मत जा, नसीब उनके भी होते हैं जिनके हाथ नहीं होते. So destiny is something which is already predetermined. Doesn't matter you're a first generation or 10th generation, as I said earlier. You have to keep working hard, and you have to keep way. You have to pave the way for yourself.
Right.
And then if the luck has to favor you, the luck will favor you. So as I said, कि नसीब उनके भी होते हैं जिनके हाथ नहीं होते, तो नसीब सबके बंधे हुए आए हैं, उससे आप लड़ नहीं सकते. Your destiny is predetermined, but the destiny can be really fructified if you really put your heart and soul with sincerity and hard work in whatever you do. It doesn't matter if you're a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor, but do it with utmost sincerity, and I think love what you do and do what you love. I think that is something we say, but we don't imbibe in our day-to-day practice.
Yeah, just to add on that, we always believe on our karma, but our action is as much important. Like when we talk about karma, but like our height could be predetermined, but about our weight and appearances, it's on our hand at some extent, right? So we
Ji.
cannot always completely believe on the destiny, but there are certain things that we are bound to do, which are already on our part. Wonderfully said. So is there any favorite quote that you have that you would like to share?
I always tell people one thing: get up, suit up, and show up.
Okay, great. And what is your favorite productivity hack, and what are the different technology tools that you use on day-to-day basis and kind of integral part of your job?
So, to be very honest, I'm not a very tech-savvy person. I've been using this laptop for the past 6 years. My phone is 4-year-old, but I try to keep things simple. As I said, as a lawyer, I'm using very limited technology. For a VC, I get a link from the court. I use not LinkedIn app, but my laptop for doing my post, because that gives me clarity of thought. I only download the app sometimes if I have to put an image. So for yesterday I had to put an image, so I downloaded the app. It makes things easier. Instagram, I use an app. WhatsApp, everybody's using. SMS you need, so that you ensure that your client has paid you money, so that you get SMS. It's a default thing. Phone you have to use because you have to talk to people. But otherwise, I'm still more a pen and paper person, or a pencil and paper. It helps me put my thought across, and I use my post-its and everything. But besides a smartphone, which I hope enables me to be a little bit more smarter about my career choices, and my laptop, which I have to use for research sometimes, and obviously sending emails, etc. I try to keep things very simple in terms of technology. I don't use those Fitbits or those smart watches, because I think I don't need a machine to tell me how many steps I have taken, or if I'm feeling fit or fine about it. I don't want other people to invade my privacy. So that way, use technology, but to the extent it helps your cause. I don't believe in using gadgetry for no use. Already we have enough mechanisms around us. In a legal arena, there are certain apps which now help you monitor your case diary. I use one of them called Pro Vakil. We have been using that at least pre-pandemic. It's, I think, a good app for lawyers. There are similar apps also, whereby all your cases are selectively put on your Google Calendar or your phone calendar. That is something I think is worth investing into if you want to do that. Obviously, legal subscription we all use as a matter of default as lawyers. Be it SCC, be it Manupatra, be it other subscription. But otherwise, as I said, I'm a very simple person that way. Not technologically challenged, but I want to keep things at the minimum. I'm a clutter-free person, so as to say. Keep less clutter, be it a technological clutter or a usual, man-made clutter. I want to declutter my life as much as possible, and technology or life is best utilized when they are kept simple.
Wonderfully answered. And so even like if you like personally me, because there are so many things for the sake of convenience, we are so much dependent on the technology and different kind of tools, and until 2018 I moved to kind of tracking everything on a pen and paper, and I use bullet journal. I'm a big fan of it. I started doing it in somewhere around 2017 and 18, and it has wonderfully, I can keep track of each and everything without looking at these. And as you also mentioned that it gives you clarity of thought, because there is something about the technical writing that we do. It connects with our brain and the thinking process, and the way kind of you can come up with the ideas. So that is altogether different. And no matter how convenient it is for us to note down something on our phone or even laptop, but ultimately I think that we should not lose touch of with writing, actually, when it comes to pen and paper. So I still use fountain pen to write in those diaries, just to keep
Yeah.
keep touch with things. Wonderful. Is there any question that I would have asked but I couldn't ask, and you want me to ask, and you would like to answer that question yourself?
On the contrary, I think I should ask you whether I have answered all your questions properly or not.
No, it was even it was really wonderful, like interacting with you in person or face to face through virtual medium, and it was kind of a really insightful session for me, and I'm sure for the people who have been watching and listening in wherever they are doing it, and they will definitely find kind of inspiring and insightful from different perspectives. Thank you so much for joining in, and it was pleasure speaking with you.